Hello, and thank you for joining the World Weekly. This is Walter Latham, your host, and we have today returning guests. Man, we're getting like Saturday Night Live, where we have people coming back. You know what I mean? That's so cool. We have Ms. Lyndsae Peele, MBA, financier. Welcome, Lyndsae.
Hello. How are you, Mr. Walter?
I'm hanging in there. And you?
I am doing well. Thank you again so much for having me back. Looking forward to our great conversation today. Just thankful to be in the midst. Thank you also to our audience who showed up to listen in today.
Oh yeah, you have a vast network, man. I mean, I think your podcast that we did was the highest ranked podcast for the year for us. Believe it or not,
I
you got
love
that
that.
pool.
To
You
God
got
be
that
the
pool.
glory.
Yes, amen. So, Lyndsae, since you were here the last time, just briefly talk about yourself. I know you'll be a little redundant, but we got new listeners, audiences, demographics have expanded somewhat. So if you can just tell us a little bit about yourself again, briefly now.
You stress the word briefly, and that can become a challenge for me sometimes.
Don't worry about it. If it's long, it's long.
Yes.
The less I have to talk, the better.
No, to everyone, if this is our first time meeting over the airwaves, it is my honor and pleasure. My name is Lyndsae Peele, also known as the Kingdom Wealth Connector. I am an author, an ecosystem builder, a leader, a nonprofit champion, a Black wealth advocate, and a community change agent. I spend my life, my ministry with entrepreneurs mostly. I support the entrepreneurial community and their families by way of finance, by way of entrepreneurship coaching, and by way of real estate. I wear a few hats within the financial services industry. I like to call myself a dualpreneur. I work full-time for an international microlending nonprofit by the name of Kiva. Specifically here in the United States, we have a small business loan product up to $15,000, 0% interest, no fees, no collateral necessary, no minimum credit score necessary, no minimum revenue and business necessary, specifically for those underestimated entrepreneurs who have had challenges accessing traditional capital. At Kiva, we are intentionally working in those communities that are looking to build ecosystems around how do we support entrepreneurs. Growing up, they used to say that it takes a village to raise a child, but
Yes,
they forgot to tell us, right, that we would still need that village as adults and even more so as entrepreneurs. So we really focus on building ecosystems that can support entrepreneurs and their families as they're building their business. I also run a financial consulting firm, a full-time Kingdom Vision Consulting, where we provide financial coaching, both personal and business, for CEOs, mostly of color. We do that by focusing on 5 key areas of finance known as class, credit worthiness, long-term wealth, asset protection, strategic banking relationships, and strategic asset accumulation. So we're very intentional about making sure that we can do our part to reduce the racial wealth gap and to reduce the financial illiteracy rate within our communities. I think we all
excellent.
know, yeah, that we weren't taught this information in school. And, a lot of times it was not a common conversation at the
That's very
dinner
true.
table. So it's a big part of what we're looking to do here is to normalize the conversation about money.
That is amazing. That is amazing because I think you fill in a space that's empty. Well, I wouldn't say it's totally empty, but we need that. Financial literacy is critical to our people. It's critical. And what you're doing, especially with microloans and Kingdom Vision, trying to get out, educate people to the realities of how economics works rather critical, because if you look at the wealth gap between us and other races or ethnicities, we're at the bottom of the pile. I mean, this is something that we really need, right? I mean, we went for civil rights, all right, civil rights and the fight. Well, that was way before your time, but however, We should have been going for silver, as in metal, that type of equality. That's what we should have pursued instead of civil rights. That is coming from, the Walt Weekly. That's my opinion. After being in the world the number of years I have, I've seen, the consequences of inactivity and the lack of knowledge, ignorance, right? And that has cost us, and it's costing our descendants. It's going to cost our descendants if we don't take the reins now and try to learn and then share with our people. We have to do that.
You're absolutely correct. The biggest thing is that we have to get comfortable talking about it first. Um, in most of our communities, it's a taboo conversation, right? We don't want to talk about money. We're either embarrassed or we feel uneducated, or we've just never seen it before, right?
Right.
Even when you think about growing up in our households, and our parents would say, a child should stay in a child's place, or whenever money was about to be a conversation, they was sending the child to the room, right? And sometimes that's more harmful than helpful, right?
Oh yes.
We're thinking that we don't want to expose them to the financial challenges within the household. However, what we're doing is shutting them out. Right. So we're teaching them that, hey, it's not okay to talk about money. It's not a welcoming conversation. We're teaching them to actually run from it early. Right. And sometimes we don't recognize the damage that does to someone. Right. And
That's
when we
very
think
true.
about as a collective, as a community, where a lot of us share those same stories. Right. In addition to sometimes being able to see the challenges that were right in front of us, that they still didn't want to let us hear us talk about it. A lot of times you've seen the eviction notices, or the credit card past due statements, right? But they still try to run away from the conversation. And now we have adults who are still uncomfortable talking about money, who barely want to talk about it with their spouse, who definitely does not want to talk about it in the household. But it does not allow us to create a strong financial foundation, because the foundation starts with education.
Absolutely. And I've expressed this so many times over the years. The Walt Weekly's been out here. This is our sixth year. Okay. We started in 2019. And one of the first few episodes that we did had to do with finance. And we've done quite a number of episodes on finance. We had financial consultants, financial advisors on the show so that we could try to get out to our audience what the importance of financial security is and be in a position to push that wealth down to our descendants. It's critical,
Absolutely.
okay? It's critical. And the thing is, what I want to say, and I don't want to cut you off, but I do want to express that our kids should be able to stand on our shoulders,
That's exactly
all
right.
right? And their kids should be able to stand on their shoulders.
That's right.
So every generation is going up this way.
That is exactly right.
All right. And of course, they're praying. You got to pray. You got to thank the Lord. All right. You don't wait on the Lord. You say, Lord, I'm going to do this. And could you help me, please?
Right.
And then you go and do it.
Right.
All right. And that's what we have. That mindset has to come to us. We have to have that mindset.
I
Otherwise,
agree.
we're going to stay behind.
You were speaking my language. I say often that we should not have to keep starting over every single generation, right? We should have
Very true.
something that we can build upon, right? Which takes us to that moment of being able to stand on the shoulders of our parents. When we think about, the economy, and when we think about within our communities, we have so many people who are in a sandwich situation, where they're in this generation where they have children, that they have
Yeah.
to financially provide for, but they also are in that space where they have a lot of parents, right? A lot of those baby boomers who did not have as much financial education. A lot of them are taking care of their parents. So it's hard for them in that generation to really focus on building it for themselves, right? To be able to pass down, because it's being split all over the place.
True.
But that really also just kind of speaks to sometimes the challenges in our communities, where it's hard for us to get a leg up, because we're constantly giving out more than what we can afford to really give, right? And we're
Yeah.
considering ourselves last, right? We got to take care of the auntie, the grandchild, the sister, or the little brother, and it's hard for an individual family to start building their wealth internally in their household, right? Because
Hmm.
it's everywhere else.
Yes, absolutely. And that's very true. I do want to ask you the landscape, the financial landscape, the economy now. You know how people are saying that, with the inflation, then they worry about stagnation, then they're worried about recession because of the Fed rate. What do you think about the state of the economy now for us, for the Black American?
A couple of things. So one, I'm a very optimistic person because I always see opportunity. No matter how long it takes for opportunity to materialize into what we desire, it can still happen. Right. So let me start there.
Okay.
Um, from that, I am very hopeful. I am very optimistic about where we can go. I really think that COVID really did a number on our communities, but
Hmm.
it woke us up a little bit,
Yes,
right? It,
yes.
it forced us to come to grips with things financially that we have been brushing under the rug for so long. It's forced us to address those errors in business sometimes, right? Even when we think about those entrepreneurs who couldn't get PPP loans because their financials weren't in order, right? So
There
I'm
you go.
seeing more entrepreneurs who are looking for more accountants and bookkeepers to help them, to reconcile their books and to have updated financials, etc. So I'm seeing the progress that some of us who are aware and awake are making, especially since COVID, right? Where we all were forced to sit in our homes, we were forced to deal with our mess because when
Right.
we're up and going and booked and busy, right, we don't always have time to sit with self and sit in the mirror and actually
Very true.
face the blues,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
So it's easy to just move on and not to spend time working on those areas of opportunity. COVID forced us to do that. But also financially, COVID showed us that one stream of income is too close to zero and that you cannot get complacent at one job or one place, right? Or even just, in hobbies and not trying to build actual, sustainable businesses because we can't afford to have a hiccup. We cannot afford for the world to shut down, right? For some
Right.
people who had emergency funds and, assets and things, there were some things that they could do, right? Some people who had mortgages, they could, go into forbearance, during COVID and not have to pay for a few months, right? People who had assets, they could take care of themselves for a couple of months while they're figuring things out, or they had some money that was still able to be working for them, right? But when we
Very good.
think about
Mhm.
our communities where a lot of times we don't have many assets, where a lot of times our net worth is zero or negative,
Or
right?
less, right. I was getting ready to say negative. Yes.
Right. Most of the time, um, COVID showed us that hey, we can't afford to be there anymore. We cannot afford to be complacent living from paycheck to paycheck and living these glorified lives, trying to keep up with the Joneses and trying to create an appearance of who we are and not necessarily where we are really, right? It forced us to address some stuff. So truly optimistically, I really do see a shift that is possible for us. Even when we think about entrepreneurship, right? We saw a boom of Black businesses that were started within the era of COVID and
Oh,
even now,
yes.
right? So thinking about those primary ways that we build wealth, right, in general through entrepreneurship, through real estate, through investing, right? We have more of our people who are now exposed to those opportunities as well. Of course the data says that if we don't change our habits, the average Black American, would have a net worth of maybe like $1,000 in 2053 or so.
Oh,
And then we'll have
really?
to check those numbers, but I believe that that's if nothing changes, right?
Okay.
We have a lot of statistics around who we have been, who we were, and sometimes who we still present ourselves to be now. But I am on the side of, when you lock arms, right, with people like myself, with people like you who are intentional about making a difference in the community, we actually can create the difference that we want to see, instead of just talking about the problems and hoping that somebody else comes and fix it. I
Very
see
true.
us being more proactive about creating solutions in our communities and being an example of the solution, because we also have to practice what we preach, right?
Yeah,
It's no more of, as do as I say, not as I do. No, people need to see you do it while you're saying it too. Right? So
absolutely.
it's it's
Absolutely.
it's it's so many lessons, so many things that I can pull just from this season, these last 4 or 5 years that I've seen in our community. But honestly, I am very hopeful for where we're going.
Well, one thing I observed though, and I'm a victim of this, or I do this, is that you come up with ideas, and mentally you're thinking okay, and you're going through it, and okay, and then you don't execute. That's a
Oh,
major problem with us. We have to execute.
oh yes,
All right.
yes,
How do
yes.
you? I mean, you can think about a lot of stuff, and you do this, and then you don't do anything about it, and then somebody else comes along and says, "Oh, I thought about that a long time ago."
Yep,
That's
yep,
the thing. We have to execute. We have to do. You think about something, you think it's, and you think it'll work, or it will. You can try it. The thing is, you have to do it, and then you have to be resistant to
yep,
people saying that, to negativity. You have to be resistant to negativity, which is unfortunate for us, and I think that's a big pull on where we are status wise globally.
yep,
Okay, we don't pull it together. Okay, and and that's what we need. People support black businesses, and on the other hand, you got black businesses that don't live up to expectations.
yep,
That's bad.
yep.
Okay, and I don't want to jump off the topic. I think I'm on the topic actually. So,
Absolutely.
you know, I'm on point. I think.
Yeah,
But I mean, that's what we got to start doing. If you got an idea, you think it's good, try it and hang in there. If
yep,
you have the commitment, you have determination, and you work hard, there's no substitute for working hard. You can work smart, yes, because you got a lot of tools out there now. You got AI, you got a lot of tools.
right.
All right. If I had those tools, man, I mean, I wouldn't have been cutting grass as a teenager. You know what I'm saying? Or working in tobacco. You know what I'm saying? I'd be online making some money. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, y'all guys, it's every opportunity. I want people to know that you're not hamstrung like we used to be before.
Yeah,
All right. There's ways that you can achieve financial independence. You just got to be dedicated to it. All right. But, there's a caveat here. And that caveat is if it's not working, you see it's not going to work, then change.
pivot.
Every plan is made to be changed, right?
Right.
Okay. Okay. All
No,
righty.
you are so right. You touched on a lot of areas. One thing I want to say is that you're correct, right? We have more of us, who I feel have so many ideas, profitable ideas that are sitting in notebooks that we wrote down years ago, a decade ago, and haven't touched it, right? And there are a couple of things that I can pull out there, right?
Hmm.
One thing is that we have to get comfortable with what execution means, right? Execution means, right, you have to strategically create a plan, a realistic plan with some smart goals and some key performance indicators, right? And some real goals. And you have to be able to execute on that, right? It's
Yes.
not just writing it down and then we're not doing anything with it. So often, and a good friend of mine said this to me about 5 years ago, Queen Conyers. She said, Lindsay, so often we are information rich and execution poor, where we go to
That's good.
all the
Absolutely.
conferences, we go to all the events and the master classes, and we're writing it down and creating the plan. But then when it's time to execute, it's crickets. And
Yeah.
there are a few reasons why, right? Sometimes we feel like we don't have enough resources, but I promise you, a lot of times you have more than what you think you have. You just have to actually start using it to be able to see what you actually have.
Very true.
Two, a lot of times it's our confidence, right? And that goes back to sometimes family trauma, right? Sometimes just you don't feel like you've produced the results that you wanted to produce in your life, so it's affected your confidence, right? It's a number of reasons. Sometimes it's relationships that we've been in that have dampened our confidence. Sometimes it's parents, right, who didn't know how to speak to you as a child, and as you grew up in those weird relationships
Hmm.
that affected your confidence. And when you have a lack of confidence, a lack of self esteem, when you don't feel worthy, or if you don't understand how worthy you are, then a lot of times that will also hinder you too from pulling the plug and actually moving and doing it and thinking that your idea is valuable. So we also have to address those too and acknowledge when that exists, and being able to identify when a solution needs to be created, right? I'm a fan of therapy, right? I believe you need Jesus and therapy. And a lot of times, some generations still don't believe in therapy yet. So we also have to be mindful. Those of us who are learning and picking up those other tools have to be
Right.
mindful of those who aren't ready to have that different experience, right? Because going through therapy is truly an experience, right? You don't get fixed in a day. You don't just become a different person in a year, right? It's about a
Hmm.
process, an ongoing journey, right? And we have to do that work to identify what are our personal roadblocks. Is it confidence, right? Is it that I've never seen it before, so I don't even know where to start, right? Is it lack of exposure? Because sometimes we're stuck in our same communities. We don't go out of the community. We don't go out of our city. Sometimes we don't go out of our state, right? You have to travel. You have to be well cultured, to sometimes just see that there's a world outside of your community that you've been accustomed to. We have to be able to figure out what is it, right? What's keeping us from being able to do the thing, being able to create a solution, and then go and do the thing, right? But I also don't want to ignore what you said at the end. You also have to analyze if it's working or not. A lot of times, your first idea or even your second might not be the idea, and that is okay, right?
Right.
Sometimes we wrestle with, forcing a business to work, and if it's not working, it's okay to pivot. It's
There you
okay,
go.
and you need to pivot quickly, actually. Don't waste a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of resources on forcing something. And so I know sometimes, especially those of faith, we're struggling with, but God gave this to me, but God said. That might be true, right? It could have been the gas that you had, or it could be true that He gave it to you. But sometimes we have to continue seeking the source to get the actual play on how to execute it. And about that, it's also about knowing the timing for it. Sometimes it can be the
Hmm.
right idea at the wrong time. Sometimes we get half the vision in a download, and then we go and trying to start that business tomorrow. He didn't say that. He just showed you what was ahead, and he
Right.
didn't say that this is tomorrow, or I need you to go and try to now go and do this thing, right? It's also about being spiritually in tune and aware, right? And for whomever have, different beliefs, right? Going your way, that is okay too. But it's about being spiritually rooted and grounded in something, right? Beyond yourself, where you get the messages and the plan. So it's a multifaceted conversation.
Well, I mean, I totally agree with everything that you just said. I hope the audience listens to this, replay it, this part, replay the whole thing. But I mean, what you said, it's just, it's true. It's very, very true. Okay. And, which this leads me to say or ask this question: what is the best way for a person, all right, that has right now thinking about this and this and that, okay, and they need some type of seed money, bad credit. Let me just back up a little bit. Which would you prefer, cash or credit, or 800 credit score, or $10,000 in the bank? Which one would you prefer?
$10,000 in the bank or 800 credit score? Oh,
Yeah.
I'm going with 800 credit score all day. I
That's you.
mean, with 800 credit score, you can get way more than $10,000.
I'm
So,
glad. I mean, the reason I brought that up is that people, when they get credit, they get a credit card, they get this, get that, and they got to realize that one of the most important tools that you can have in this economy is good credit.
oh, absolutely.
Good credit. is, I mean, it frees you up. It gives you a sense of security, and then you become wiser on what you spend.
Yep.
You only spend what you can pay back.
Yep.
You only borrow what you can pay back. That's important. Credit, good credit. What do they say now? You know, when you hear in media, yeah, I got to marry me a white man because I know he got an 800 score or this and that, and that's it. And so what they're telling us is that the black man ain't got no credit. The black people, we all got bad credit. Only white people got good credit. That
Yep.
means you're not responsible. You're not accountable.
Hmm.
You don't pay your bills. That's something that we need to focus on too. Cleaning up our debt.
Yes. Yes.
All right, we
Yes.
have to.
Yes. Listen, you are preaching, okay? And I hope that it's not going over our audience's head, right? Credit is one of the most powerful tools that you can have, especially here in America specifically, right? A
Yes,
lot of times we hear that cash is king, but cash is only really king when you have a lot of it, right? A lot of expendable cash that you can really do some things with, right? However, credit is truly queen because with when you have credit, a lot of times you can do more than what you can do with cash, right?
that's
You
right.
have good credit, you can go out there and get a few credit accounts and get $100,000, and being able to convert that into cash. It's gonna take you forever sometimes to save up $100,000 in cash, especially if you're just working a job and you don't have multiple streams of income, right? Credit is so powerful because it really can make the difference between if you can get the funds to actually launch that idea that you have or not,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And as that entrepreneur, you can either be an asset to your business or you can be a liability to your business. Sometimes it's a great idea, just the owner isn't ready for it.
yeah.
You know,
And a lot of
the
employers, they check when you apply.
yes,
They check your credit.
absolutely. Now, while there are a lot of, alternative lenders out there that aren't credit based, sometimes, it's more character based,
Yeah.
like Kiva with our social underwriting, program. However, when we think about being able to access like dollars, we need good credit, right? Because when you're an entrepreneur, you are going to be considered as a personal guarantor. So
Oh
they are
yes.
absolutely going to look at your credit, especially if you own more than 25% interest in a business. And for any SBA products, that's 20% more, right?
Wow.
So if you are 100% owner of your business, they are looking at you to provide a layer of comfort if they should give this business this funding. And if you are not providing a solid foundation for your business to be built on, your business can get a no because of things that you've done with your finances.
But you know
And
what
this
is
is
obsolete?
a whole conversation, though, right? This is not to make
Hmm.
anyone feel bad. It's just to create a level of awareness and accountability that we have to go and clean up the things that we have messed up. And it's okay if you didn't have the knowledge. It's okay if nobody taught you how to manage your credit. However, now that there are so many tools out here, we have Google College and YouTube University, right? So for free, right? You can go and learn how to fix your credit. You can go and learn how to manage your credit, right? On an ongoing basis because it's a lifestyle. So
Oh
it's
yes.
about actually doing it and not just, oh, I don't pull my credit because it make me upset. It's come on, it's deeper than that now.
Well, I know my grandmother raised me, Hannah Stokes. All right. And she only went to the second grade. She was born in 1890. You know what I'm saying? So she always taught me, and this is when communities raised the children down in
Mm,
Williamson, North Carolina. All right, and we had our own businesses, our stores, and all this. I know you heard about this.
absolutely.
All right, and so Ma, and that's my ma. She used to tell me if I wanted let's say I wanted a stereo. One time I wanted a stereo. All right, a record player, and she said, "Okay, I will get you a record player. Call up so downtown. Of course, things like that, we had to go uptown, right? Call them, go there, and have them call me and get it. I'll go down to the store, appliance store, I got the record player, They called my mom. She said, okay. And then that was it. We got it. That was the power of having credit then, not on so much electronically or on the system, word of mouth per word. She told him, give it to him.
That's right.
Okay? And that's what we need. We have to have that. She taught me then, said, you see that? Good credit. That's because I got good credit. That's why I can do that.
Yep.
And I learned that then, and that followed me throughout my life. Even though when I was younger, especially your age, I didn't pay off anybody much. You know what I'm saying? I was just spending. But you learn. It's all
Yeah,
right to make a
absolutely.
mistake, then you learn from it, you know?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, that's just part of growing up, become more responsible. And I teach my kids. I said, look, it's going to rain one day. I don't care how well things are going now. It will rain. It will
Yes, you will.
rain. And what are you going to do when it rains? So I try to instill in them the fact that, you have to have one, good credit, two, money, rainy day fund. All
Yep.
right. Be able to be able to respond to anything, natural disasters, this, that, anything can happen.
That's right.
Just
That's right.
know it's going to rain one day. It's not always going to be good. That's life.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
All right.
You are correct. You are correct.
So I want to track back a little bit to the Fed reducing the interest rate by 50 basis points, half a percent. What do you think about that?
I'm excited. I'm excited, especially because um, my belief is different though. For me, high interest rates doesn't necessarily scare me. Because at the end of the day, at some point they will, when you have the credit and you have the liquid assets that can be available, right?
Hmm.
You make things work in any economic environment, and that's what we should be striving towards, right? We should not be in a space where we're afraid every time something rattles, in the economy, right? Or the interest rates go up a little bit, right? A lot of it, but we shouldn't be torn apart, right? So for me, I was ready and prepared to buy in, any environment. However, when I think about like our communities in general and just what this means for us is that more people are looking to start back purchasing homes again. Right. So I
Oh
know
yeah.
that that's going to be a really, really important part because, again, when we think about creating wealth in our communities, a big part of that is through real estate. Right. And for
Well,
a lot of us,
now I'm sorry. That's a segue to
a
what some of the
whole,
things you expanded your portfolio. Oh, you
yes,
in real estate now, a real estate
yes,
tycoon. Hey,
yes.
let's
So
let's talk about that when you get ready. Go
I'm
ahead.
I'm so excited about that. Ownership is important, right? We have to own. It's cool to
Hmm.
rent. It's nice, when you have to, right? Or if you feel like you don't want to live in a primary residence but you still want to own real estate, that's different, right? We have to own. We need something to our names, right? One, to build wealth, right? Accumulation, right? When we think about appreciation in real estate, the value of our properties going up, right? When we think about what we can do with the additional equity when we pay down that mortgage and we have room in that property that we can do some things with. You can use your equity to put your grandchild through school, or using your equity to start that business, or using that equity to go and buy another
Very true.
property, right? You have more flexibility, right? Now you got to keep your credit good to get access to that
That's
equity
right.
there. However, you have that level of flexibility, right? Even thinking about during COVID, how homeowners were able to pause their mortgage payments with their companies, right? There were some people who I know did not pay their mortgage for at least 18 months.
Wow.
But when you own, you have that flexibility. I don't know a landlord out there who told their tenant, hey, don't worry about paying your rent for 18 months.
No way. They got to pay their
No,
mortgage.
no way, no way, no way, Jose. I'm a landlord and I want my money and I want it
That's
on time.
right.
right? And there's nothing wrong with that. It's the nature of doing business. And we have to really start creating, right, a portfolio that can, one, we can use to increase our own wealth and create a net worth for ourselves, but also, again, creating these assets to be able to pass it down to the next generation. You
Very
have
sure.
some communities out here who they're living in a family home that's been in there for generations, for 4 and 5 and 6 generations sometimes. For us, a lot of times it's not like that. Yes, of course, I'm not speaking for the entire minority community,
No,
right?
no,
We're
yes,
just thinking generally. There are a lot of us who don't see that. For some people, they've never seen their parents or grandparents own a home. For some people, they saw them own and they always lived in grandma's house. But once grandma passed away, then the house just went to shame, right? You got family members fighting over the home, but nobody wants to take care of it. Nobody wants to pay the taxes. Nobody wants to do the upkeep. So now we're losing it to the system. And grandma, big mama fought so hard to keep
that's
that
right.
home, and then we got here irresponsible, fighting for entitlement. Oh, it belonged to me. And then we lose it, right? So we got to think about all of those things. So now we're still trying to increase our level of home ownership. But for some of us, we got to go and get back some things, right? For some families who might have had a small real estate portfolio and then lost it, now you're starting over again. And once you sell it, it's hard to get it back. And you're for sure not going to get it back for the same price,
Oh
right?
no,
So now
oh no.
you're paying more for it, right? So it's so many layers, but I'm excited about this because since the last time I've been on the show, I have received my real estate license. So
Oh
I am
yes,
a licensed realtor here in the state of Maryland. I am really, really excited to really make sure that we are providing opportunities for families to build wealth through home ownership, but also through commercial real estate as well, right? I don't believe that we just start as, let me just buy my primary residence with my white picket fence and that's it. That's the American dream. We need to own multiple properties. We need to be investors, right? And if you don't want to be a landlord, guess what? You can get a property manager that can do the work for you, right? And they just kind of communicate with you those hard decisions that you need to make. We have to stop using that as an excuse because there are resources and tools out here where we can accumulate wealth, accumulate that real estate. And then there's also just multiple ways that you can invest. You can invest with family, invest with friends, of course, that you trust, and of course, people who are also bringing something to the table, right? If
of
you don't
course.
have the credit, but you have the cash, and they have the credit and no cash, then you all can come together as
Yeah,
a partnership, right? To purchase and accumulate wealth. We have to stop always thinking that we have to go and rent, and that mindset trickles down into our businesses because they always assume that, oh, I have to go and lease automatically and that's my only option. That's not necessarily always your only option if you're financially prepared and aware, right? We need to own more commercial real estate as well. We don't want to get out of that game completely, right? And yes, we have to catch up tremendously, but first we got to be aware and just do it, right? As we do our,
yes.
it adds to the numbers, right, of in our community.
There
So
has to be a starting point.
absolutely. So I'm looking forward to being able to support more families and stepping into the real estate space. So if, of
And
course, if
congratulations.
you are in Maryland and you are looking to get into real estate, whether you're looking to buy your first home or whether you're looking to become an investor, please, I encourage you to reach out to me. I'll make sure
Alrighty.
that we provide all of our contact information at the end.
Alrighty. I mean, we have it from the last show,
Yeah.
but give me an update just to make sure. Okay. Just,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. I want to get that out there because what you're doing in the real estate space, man, getting into that, that's what we need.
Yeah.
That's what we need. All this redlining, all this kind of stuff.
That's right. That's right.
And then the mindset of, oh, I don't want to, renting is better. That's where we should go. We don't want to own this. If we don't want to own that, that's horrible. I mean, you got to really sit down and think and look at just more than what's in front of you. Just look at our people in totality. How we have suffered all these 400 years, and what we need to do to correct that situation. How do we remediate? How do we fix that? And the only way to fix it is by things like what you're doing. I'm so proud of what you're doing out there. All right, and people like yourself, and that's what the Walk Weekly is about. Trying to highlight and show people that what they see in media is just a small fraction of our people, a very small fraction. Okay,
Absolutely.
We have people like you out there. Okay. I am so pleased. And I told you this the last time you were on the show. It's people like you that gives me so much hope for the future. I may not be around, but I know that with people like you out there, hey, we're gonna be all right.
Yes.
I used to be discouraged, and I think I told you this before that I was just discouraged, and that we're not doing what we need to do. And I don't see this now, but fortunately, with this show, I've been able to meet people such as yourself, and it just puts a big smile on my face. And I know we're gonna be all right with the Lord's help. I know we're gonna be fine.
Amen.
Uh,
Amen. And starting there first, right? Everything starts with the kingdom. I am grateful. I am fortunate to be in this space. I'm always so grateful for my parents who paved the way for me, who taught me what entrepreneurship could do for our family. So, I give so much praise and honor to them, and of course to God first. I wanted to also just go back to a point and
mhm.
really make sure that our audience knows that it's okay to have a diverse thought. It's okay to have different perspectives, and it's okay where some things aren't applicable to you, right? Eat the chicken, throw away the bone, right? You just get
Yeah,
the meat off that you need and get rid of whatever else isn't applicable. And I go back to the statement around renting, right? My perspective is that we just can't settle for that alone. Not saying that you cannot rent, but you should not just rent and not own anything, right? Like right now, I live in an apartment building that I absolutely love and adore, and I'm renting, right? Because in this season of my life, no, I don't want to fix anything, right? I want to have an
yeah,
issue. Let me submit this request real quick. I want
yeah.
community where events are happening. I can go upstairs or do whatever, right? However, I also have a real estate portfolio where I have properties, where I have real estate cash flow, right? So it's a difference. It's about understanding the power of ownership and the need for it, and making sure that you're intentionally accumulating a portfolio while doing whatever works best for your lifestyle, for your immediate lifestyle in that particular season that you're in.
Excellent. Now, there's some news I want to share with the audience. You were appointed. What now? What was that you were appointed to? The chamber.
Ah, I like
Yeah.
I like the way you sneak stuff in there. So another very, very important update since the last time we spoke. I have transitioned from my former role as the vice president of the Greater Baltimore Black Chamber of Commerce, the membership side, and I am now the new president of the foundation. So we have a Greater Baltimore Black Chamber of Commerce Foundation that I now get to lead over the next 3 years, and I'm so excited about it. If
I
you
am too.
are if you are a Black business, a minority business in the greater Baltimore area, or even around Maryland in Howard County, Baltimore County, Anne Arundel County, Montgomery County, wherever you are, we are here to support you at the Greater Baltimore Black Chamber of Commerce. Overall, really, our mission is to provide support and leadership for the growth and development of Black owned and operated businesses, and to make sure that we are a leading advocate for economic empowerment in the African American community. So I'm so excited to continue to walk in my ministry, to continue, adding value to our entrepreneurial ecosystem. So I encourage you all to learn more about us.
Oh, excellent, excellent. I am so. I mean, I start smiling and feeling good all over when I speak to people like such as yourself, and you're so unique, and I mean, you walk the walk. That's what we need, people. Walk the walk. You can talk, but you got to walk it. You know what I
Right,
mean?
right,
All
that's
right.
right. Right,
And
that's right.
it's just one thing though. One thing that I do want to bring up is that we're being discouraged about getting an education, going to college, this and that. Oh, they say it's student loans. Student loans are hard. I mean, hey, they are definitely they take a long time to pay off after you finish. But
Absolutely.
take what you need, right?
That's, that's
And
right.
then do go to. We need to be educated. All right,
Mhm.
we got to be educated. We're not like the main the majority in this country. We need to be educated. Ignore that. I do want to point that out in this forum, right? Is that when you're educated, you open yourself up to more possibilities.
Yep.
You understand more. Literacy is important. All right. And it's more important for us, I believe, than any other ethnic group.
Yep.
All right. Because we're at the bottom of the ladder. But I'm not saying go to college and get the student loans. No, I mean, take one course at a time, depending on your age. Take a course at a time, pay it off. Take a course at a time, pay it off. Sooner or later, you're going to get there.
You're right. And it's something else I also don't want people to miss, right? Education is important, but it doesn't always have to come from an expensive degree, right? I really believe that we have to invest more intentionally in our community colleges because for a lot of people, that is a start that we need. And they provide a lot of great opportunities for families, right? To save money, but to also learn and get the education that you need to lay that foundation. A lot of times it is more cost effective to start at a community college and get your associate's degree and then to go on to a 2 year to finish at a university, right? And you have some community colleges that have partnerships with universities where you can still go either free or extremely discounted, or they can, guarantee admission or whatever the case may be, depending on their requirements. You have to just think about all options. It's not just a one role for everybody. University starting out is not for everybody.
No,
And
it's not.
sometimes, honestly, a college degree is not for everybody, right? There are so many other
Very
ways
true.
to educate yourself outside of just solely a college degree. Because even when you think about the people with degrees, a lot of times people aren't even working in the industry that they got degrees anyway. So, it's also about investing in certifications, right? You
Oh,
can
yeah.
get some other credentials, right? There are a lot of programs out there. You have, Coursera and you have LinkedIn Learning, right? There are so many other ways. You have cybersecurity programs where you don't even need a bachelor's or a master's in computer science, or, in these areas, you can go and get a certificate and go and get a six-figure job. So it's just about also, broadening our perspective and stop trying to put our families in boxes, and because everybody don't fit in the same box, and we should,
Absolutely.
right? So
Absolutely.
yeah, I
So,
want our listeners to feel comfortable, with just exploring what works for you.
absolutely. But not having any type of tools in your tool kit, forget
Right.
about it. I mean, you
Ab-
could do heating and electric or plumbing. I mean, those jobs, those are jobs that you can make tremendous amounts of money. Electrical. I mean, it's not all degrees now. It's not all about going to universities.
it's getting those
Let me be,
trades. Go
yeah,
for it.
those trades are. I mean, you for life. You're good for life
For
as long as
life.
you maintain your credentials and
For
you're
life.
good to go.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, I may have omitted that, but that's included. You got
Yeah.
to be educated in something.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
have to have
You
credentials.
think about my father. My father's a plumber, right? My father doesn't have a college degree,
No,
right? And he's
doesn't
a
need it.
plumber and has been running, the family business for over 20 years, right? And that
Yeah,
business took care of me and honestly still definitely takes care of me today,
yeah.
right? So it's definitely exploring, out of the box opportunities. And they used to shed light on those opportunities in school, right? We used to have mechanic classes and, you know, um, home ec classes to teach you how to be like a housekeeper and great
Hmm.
housekeepers, right? It's nothing wrong with like owning that space in that industry, right? They used to have carpentry in school and they've taken those things out and they've shifted more into trying to force people into schools and accumulate all this debt sometimes. And that's not always the best way for us, especially in our communities where a lot of times we're getting in this debt that we cannot afford. And then some of us are even starting school and not finishing, and then we still got $50,000 worth of student loan debt that we're not even doing anything with. So again, exploring all of the options and opportunities that are out there, and giving our children permission to do that. Stop forcing them to school. Right? They
Well,
will
the
tell
thing is that yeah, I didn't mean to interrupt you there, but there's a qualification that I think is that you have to sit down with your child. Like when my kids graduated high school, all right, and I said, okay, which way are you going? Are you going where? University? Where are you going? Where do you apply to? Where are we going? My daughter chose University of Miami. My
Yeah.
son chose Suffolk County Community. That's good. I mean,
Yeah.
hey, you
Absolutely.
doing. That's it. He's a
Absolutely.
graphic design artist, and now he's a photographer. He has his own business. And my daughter, she's a registered nurse, and and now she's a project manager. She
Yeah.
installs emergency room equipment. All right, she
Wow.
oversees the installation of triage equipment. All right. So the thing is that you tell them you set up. They told me going to school when I was in my 40s. I used to go to night school 4 or 5 nights a week, and then all day Saturday, all day Sunday, and
Yeah.
working.
Yeah.
There has to be a sacrifice. You got to be committed.
That's right. That's right.
All right,
That's
you have to be committed, and nothing's. And another thing I do want to mention in the show is that looking at Williamson, North Carolina, and those southern places, southern towns that where all the industries are gone, there's nothing to do. There's only gangs and crime and drugs and stuff like that. It's not my my town that I grew up in. I can't recognize it now,
right.
but we got to move. When I
Yeah.
was 16, I left North Carolina. I came to New York. You have to move sometime. You have to go where the opportunities are. That's what you got to do.
Yeah.
You can't just sit there. I mean, as a young person, you can't. You have to move. It's nothing there. You have to have, the courage. Some people it's a lot. You got to move from one place to another. It's hard, but
You're
sometimes you have to do that.
you're right.
I just want to
You're
say that those people in those small towns and y'all guys you don't have no job, and every day you get depressed and you start drinking and you start taking drugs because idle mind is a
yeah.
devil's. There you go.
Devil's playground. That's right.
You have to move. Go to Charlotte. Go to Raleigh. Go run. Go to
Somewhere.
Richmond.
Somewhere.
Go to Baltimore. Go somewhere. Just don't sit there
Yeah.
as if you don't have any choice. You do have a choice.
Yeah. I agree. I agree. I agree. It's bittersweet because we love our home and we want to contribute and make sure that we can contribute to the growth and development that needs to happen. However, sometimes you have to know yourself, right? Some people can make it there and go to school and do well and come back and and be a part of the change and be a part of the school system and be a part of the justice system and other areas, but you have to at least get out and go and see the world, go see something outside of that space. You can't just stay there alone, right? Go to
That's
school, and
true.
even if you decide to come back, that's okay, right? And be a part of the growth
There
that
you
needs
go.
to happen there, because the students and the kids growing up there, they still need mentorship. So everybody can't go away, right? We need still some quality role models, right? But it's about seeing the world, being exposed to it, and then bringing what you've learned and what you've experienced back into these spaces and places to give an opportunity, for those children growing up to see something different. Like I appreciated my mentors and the programs that I was in, who could tell me and expose me to things that they had seen in their college years or when they were away working and before they came back home. So
Mm-hmm.
it's I think it's a varied experience, depending on who the person is and what their journey is too.
All right. All right. So I do want to say thank you so much.
I appreciate it. This is a really great conversation.